Well, welcome back, everybody, to Thinking Outside the Bank. Today, I'm sitting down with my good friend, Dustin Geroski, a local Orlando investor who's evolved from getting his MBA and a numbers guy into creative wholesaling and now into capital raising and new build co-living projects in Houston, Texas. Dustin's story is a perfect example of how people can get into real estate without using much or any of their own money by becoming extremely valuable to the right team. So I wanted to get into that a little bit with Dustin today. And so, yeah, Dustin, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me today. I know we live an hour away. I see you like once every month or two, but I know we're in the midst of changing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Local here in Florida, and love to get to learn a little bit more about you. Like you said, we're in the midst of changing that. I feel like it's becoming more recurrent here thanks to the Creative Nation tour. Seeing you a few days in a row. But for all the people out there that maybe don't know who you are, don't know your story, share with us just a little bit about kind of your upbringing, your schooling, and kind of what got you into real estate.
Yeah, so in short, my background, undergrad, I went to undergrad in Hawaii on Oahu, where I studied supply chain management. Met my wife out there and then left during COVID because the whole island was shutting down. We both fortunately already graduated. And then essentially, we found our way in South Florida, Miami, where we both went to grad school. And so I went to NSU in Fort Lauderdale, where I got a finance MBA. And then it was during there, or while there, I met my business partner, LD. And so ultimately, he had already retired from real estate at age 31. Met him at church. One of those people that you meet, and you're like, all right, I gotta know this person a little more. And so we became friends and fast forward together, or fast forward 3 years now. Um, yeah, we have 12 properties together. And so I found in in grad school I studied a lot of finance even before that. Stocks, bonds, like everything in between. And I soon realized that a lot of the rules that I found that applied in that arena, not only did they apply to real estate, but it was 100 times better when you did apply them to real estate. Like the leverage, how like the stock market, I'm not a big fan of. I've studied it very closely with some pretty high level mentors. And anyway, I found that real estate for pretty much everyone is a better alternative. And yeah, I just dove headfirst in.
I love that. And I've got plenty of questions, obviously. First, how did you end up in Hawaii? I feel like that's everybody's dream. Now, did you grow up in Florida and then move out there, or were you from somewhere else and then moved to Hawaii? Don't tell me how you got there.
Yeah. Well, I'd actually lived there before when I was in kindergarten. My dad was military, and so we bounced around every 2 years basically. And then Hawaii, I had a chance to, I had already been taking classes for grad school and stuff, and I realized that there was like a certain scholarship that I could get out there. And I didn't apply for it or anything yet. I just basically I moved out there and I was like, I'm gonna just gonna make it happen. So then I show up to the school and everything, and I'm like, hey, can I finish my degree here? And they treat you different person online application. And so it was more just like I wanted it to happen. I was like, I'm gonna make it happen.
Nice, nice.
And that's kind of like I guess the common denominator among a lot of things I do is like I just I know it won't be easy, and then I just figured it out.
Nice. Just go get it. Sometimes you gotta, less talk and more action, and perfect example
Hmm.
of that. Um, so then you came back to Miami. How did you end up in grad school there? How did you pick that as your place of MBA? I actually applied to NSU as well for my doctorate degree in physical therapy and ended up at UCF. So I'm just curious how you ended up down there.
Yeah, so I mean, there's like a general MBA, right? And that's kind of like you'll study a little bit of marketing, a little bit of finance, a little bit of a few different things. And then there's a specialized MBA. So mine was finance. And I found one though that was like literally like to the T what I wanted to study, which was actually like monetary policy, central banking. Like you dive into, okay, what is a dollar? Like, where did it come from?
Hmm.
Who decides how many there are? And so I looked for all these different programs, and that was one that I saw I could dive deep into that specific subject matter.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So you've studied money and the dollar. That's interesting.
Hmm.
So coming from that, okay, so you got to the end of your finance specific MBA. You'd met your business partner through the church. First of all, I love that's you guys where you met. And then what was the kicker that finally were like, all right, I got to do business with this guy. And you did say something very interesting, and I've met LD and I know I've heard his story, but he retired at 31, but you guys have gone on to get 12 properties together. So clearly he's not retired from real estate. I know you've kind of gotten that back up and running, and now you guys have an amazing team doing lots of cool stuff. How did that conversation go? How did you guys know, hey, we got to do something together?
It was really we started before even talking about real estate, we started actually training for a marathon together. Just I'd done a few before. He was starting to get into running, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to do a race?" And it's not because I like it by any means, but it's like the mental performance that you're able to basically that state of mind when you're in that type of condition is hard to replicate. And it's like I'll probably honestly I hate running, but I know whenever I hit that level, it's like mentally, business, relationships, everything peak. And so yeah, that's how it unfolded. We started training. And then after I think a run one day, he's like, "Hey, do you want to buy real estate?" And I'm like, "Let's go for it." And so this is about 3.5 years ago, actually. So we decide we're going to buy real estate. And then we go to Puerto Rico. We do our own mastermind, just two of us for 5 days. And then what we do is we map out all these goals, and then we start identifying, trying to reverse engineer it, but we didn't know anything about capital raising or creative finance. So it concludes by us having these obnoxious targets written down in a journal. I have it over there. And a week after that, I see my first sub 2 / Pace Morby ad on YouTube. And so buy things, no money down. What? And anyway, I show it to LD. I'm like, hey, is this clickbait? Is it real? Like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I haven't done it, but my dad has. I know it's legit, right? Like, at least that type of transaction. And I'm like, all right. So I entered, actually, this is kind of funny. I I waited a month and then I was like, all right, I think I want to join sub two. And then so I tell LD, who's not traditional schooling, him and I are yin and yang when it comes to schooling. He's very street smart, didn't finish high school, none of that. And then I went, the opposite route. And so when I tell him I'm going to spend, you know, basically 10 grand on joining sub two, he's so against it. So I waited a couple weeks and I was like, no, I'm doing it. I'm going with my instincts. And yeah, so here we are.
So when did you join Sub 2? When is this in the timeline?
3 years ago, like this week actually.
Wow. Okay. So January 2023. Okay. It's a little before I found it. I think I found it the end of 2023 and ultimately joined in 2024 um, as a Gator, but was really studying into Sub 2. And again, I same thing. I saw the ad and I was like, is this clickbait? I listened to a couple of them. I was like, even if it's clickbait, I like this guy's storytelling. I like, it's what seems to be his morals and what he portrayed and kind of as a giver, and really just as a servant, a servant leader, which was what I always was taught, like the healthcare that I was in, the leadership, the mission behind it was all servant leadership. So it really related to me too. Um, so I love that story and kind of how you trusted your instinct, even though your partner was kind of like, no, what the heck are you doing? So take me through that evolution. So you joined. LD was against it. Obviously, you guys are still partners. Met him here recently. Um, how did that evolve? Did he finally come around to this whole idea of sub two? Is he still against it, or how did that evolution go the past 3 years?
Um, it was more so at first, yeah, he was against it just because he's like, we could figure out all this for free. And I'm like, yeah, but that timeline will be atrocious. It would take, 10 years. And yeah, so I join and basically we start getting access to deal flow, start looking at it all. Um, we even flew out like to Indiana one time to look at a whole portfolio. Like we were on the hunt. And so January to May, we buy our first property and I do my first wholesale deal. First property, it wasn't even a creative deal. It was just like it was one that was near Disney in Orlando, Kissimmee.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, it's not a slam dunk, but at long term, it's like this thing is going to go up in value. And so bought that, and then while we were on the hunt, I found, deals that they were they looked good but didn't fit our buy box. And so yeah, my first wholesale deal, it was a friend of a friend, we realized, like same mutual Facebook friend. And I was like, hey, I don't want to buy this, but I can totally find a buyer. So yeah, my first wholesale deal was a handshake, no contracts, nothing. And I just posted it inside of the Sub 2 Facebook group. And I said, hey, here are the terms. Like I had no idea what I was writing, but it was enough to like just inch forward.
Yeah.
And so yeah, within the same month, so joined end of January, bought first property May, did the whole first wholesale deal end of May.
And you said the first one you guys bought wasn't creative?
Nope, nope. We got a DSCR and just split the entry.
That's what I was going to ask is so you put your own money into that, correct?
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yep.
And you guys still have that as like a long-term rental, or what was your strategy there?
Yep. Yeah, that one we've debated. It's in a heavy like STR community because it's like 10 minutes from Disney, but we still just, yeah, long-term rental for simplicity.
It's awesome. And it still makes money. And I think everybody realize, well, maybe doesn't realize you get into sub two and everybody is obviously drawn in by pace saying you can buy it with little to no money. You don't have to use your own credit, all of those things, but they don't realize that deals still happen like that. There are still deals out there that it's not all creative finance. And I want to get into that here in a little bit of how you guys purchase your deals now. Um, Take me through the evolution of what your original buy box was and how that's kind of evolved over time and kind of why. Because I think again, that's the big thing I had to realize is I got in, I set a goal, and I was like dead set on sticking to that. And then I realized you kind of evolve as the market changes or as your strategy changes, and that's okay to kind of shift and to pivot. So I want to get into that. What was your first buy box? What was your, even broadly, it doesn't have to be down, nitpicky. And what was the goal you guys initially set out to do? Was it like, hey, we're going to acquire, 10 properties together over the next 5 years, or take me through a little bit of that thought process?
Yeah, so him and I are both, so he's like extreme visionary, and then I'm definitely visionary, and I have like some integrator abilities. So our goal is pretty obnoxious. Is like in 10 years, 100 million is what we have 100 million worth of property is what we wrote in Puerto Rico. And so yeah, the first buy box, it was all around Orlando because like you and I, we live pretty close to Orlando and we see it's constantly growing. Um, it's in the middle of the state, so better flood zones, insurance, like that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so yeah, at first it was pretty narrowed there. But it was a blend of learning more and then new relationships that expanded the buy box. So yeah, that first deal, and I like to tell a lot of people that your first couple deals, they're probably not going to be slam dunks, but you're building the resume and you're building the story, the credentials. Ideally, you're documenting it online. And what was really cool though is that first property like breaks even as a long-term rental. It's not even cash flowing. But the contractor we found from it, we did multiple co-living deals with because we found we trusted him, like, and it was a win-win. And so without that first deal, that was like the catalyst, the first domino of like, all right, we found an amazing contractor from that. And then he helped us tackle the first co-living deals. And those are the ones that allowed me to essentially start teaching co-living inside of Sub 2. So it's like without that first C minus mediocre deal, a lot of that probably wouldn't have unfolded.
That's good. And I can definitely relate to that from again the contracting side from a fix and flip, but also lending deals. I've done, a fair few of PML deals over the past year, and not all of them were slam dunks like you see all these huge returns in Gator and everybody wanting 20 and 25%, which is crazy. And if you really go down to the usury laws, it's actually, can get called and not get reimbursed. So but I've built some really good, solid relationships and solid returns over time that I don't worry when I put my money out now. It's like, okay, it's a good operator. They're tried and true. Maybe I'm not getting 20% return, but I'm getting 12 or 15, and I'm not worried about it coming back. They'll have other deal flow. So
Hmm.
again, kind of realizing that, and I went from the newbie who was asking and asking and asking all these questions and thinking that every deal was a slam dunk because again, what Pace puts out there, it's on a term I've coined as like sensationalism, making everything sound almost a little better than it is sometimes. And then you kind of get into it and you realize that's possible, but it's not, 10 out of 10 times that happens. It's maybe 1 out of 10. And you've got to earn the right to get there and recognize which ones those are. And you only get there by doing the reps, doing the thing, and again, kind of taking part in some of those maybe mediocre deals, break even, but kind of learning what's good and what's not by actually doing the thing. So I love that that's kind of what you shared there and kind of your journey and your goals there too. So, um, what changed in how you saw your role in you and LD's partnership from the beginning to obviously now? You guys bought that first deal as a DSCR loan. You each used part of your own money. I know you raise capital for all your deals now. How did that evolve over time? Was that a relationship thing? Was that a thought and a mindset thing? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, at first it was more like deal sourcing. He's always with him. He's done over 100 rehabs, so that's always been his staple in the dynamic. Is like, all right, the experience. And so in the beginning, it was me more so hunting down deals, and then after we bought a handful together, we started seeing like patterns. Like, all right, we're both kind of tired of rehabs, that kind of stuff. And then it turned into me raising capital more. Um, so on all the deals, I've been the conduit for the capital side. And then it snowballed into like what you see us doing today is the new construction co-living, where he is overseeing um he's more project manager, but also like on our org chart, referencing like rocket fuel, EOS and all that. So on our team we have owner's box and then visionary integrator and then all the subcomponents. And so he's the visionary and then the project manager on our org chart. And then he'll be in owner's box soon. We're making some adjustments. And then I'm in owner's box and then capital raising and then underwriting.
Nice. And obviously you've expanded that team for your operations. What are some other roles that you all have and have built out in this team now too?
Yeah, so integrator, who's Emily, operations, which is more like the both integrator and operations are close, but the operations is more in the day to day, even more. Um, and then let's see, marketing. So I'm trying to, we have subcomponents under that first main layer as well. So I'm kind of grouping them together.
Mhm.
But we have, yeah, marketing, investor relations, and then our CFO, Rhonda, and then asset manager, and then more of like day-to-day marketing, where our VA does most of that.
So you've got a pretty healthy team, it sounds like.
Mhm.
What is it like? Some people may hear that and think, well, he's bought himself a job managing a team. What's your day-to-day like in terms of communication and time spent on actually like quote unquote managing a team?
Well, have you heard of EOS?
Yeah.
Okay. So like we are heavily, heavily implementing it. And so a lot of the team is built from connections. Like I'm almost the whole team. I'm like the common denominator, you could say. And so LD and I obviously. Um, and then the natural progression was is like a year and a half ago, a little over a year ago. I stayed at Kaipo's for Pace was doing filming at his house. And I met Kaipo once before. Um, he's from Hawaii,
Hmm.
so we naturally right off the bat had several things we could talk about. And then 2 weeks later, I was supposed to go to Pace's house again for filming. And I basically just invited myself to Kaipo's. I was like, hey, can I crash at your place? No worries if not. You don't really even know me, but and so that's how it snowballed is I invited myself to stay for the weekend. And yeah, it turned into Kaipo and let's see. The arrangement was I was like, Kaipo, I'm gonna find the deals. You focus on the systems and capital. And then the semesters started, so we had a lot of funnels where we could, command attention. And then it that snowballed into capital raising, just as a team collectively, like, hey, we're gonna all capital raise. And then as that grew and compounded, we had a variety of people that we needed just help with. So the first one was we were like, Emily, we know you're the TC. Can we just pay you more to be the operations? And she's like, well, what is that? And we're like, we don't even know, but we know we need you. So like, we'll pay you double or whatever it was. And so she was the glue between everything. And so, and then we use a credit sponsor. And so Luke on our team, he's in charge of investor relations. And then I didn't mention this, but he's also in charge of the lending. So for our whole team, he's the point of contact with the lenders. And so since he was the first credit sponsor, he naturally just turned into the lending rep or that POC for us. And then as the deals were, about to close and stuff, we had some weird things that needed attention on the properties, like, just maintenance stuff. And so that naturally LD found his way into the mix. And
Okay.
then after, a couple of properties, we were like, all right, we need a CFO. And so Kaipo already knew Rhonda and then brought Rhonda in. And then the last two, or I guess three, Audrey's helped us a lot from Pad Split, as just they have access to a lot of data that we don't have publicly. And then Will, I call him the funnel master, Will Castillo. From the very beginning, Will has helped us create all the funnels, everything. And then lastly, the third is her name's Rocky. She's a VA in the Philippines. And so she works close with Will, but she handles the more day-to-day stuff. And then Will is more like the big picture, like, all right, we're leading into a raise. What does this need to look like?
Wow. Pretty complex. Now, do you guys meet as a whole team every week?
Every Monday, we do our L10, 90-minute meeting. Yeah, every Monday afternoon, 1:30.
Nice. Okay. Um, so I'm going to kind of hone in and focus more obviously on your role now of capital raising and things like that too. And a lot of people think capital raising means having a ton of rich friends that just want to throw money at you. From your experience, what does capital raising actually mean?
So the way we define it, the way I personally view it, is we're providing a lot of free value. And in turn, people want to do deals with us. So like our office hours is a core staple or core pillar in the capital raising where it's every Tuesday, anybody from anywhere on the internet can come on. And it's always different. It's never boring. And then Thursdays we do, investor only office hours. We have 120 capital partners and it's only private to them. The other part is, and so on the Tuesdays, we'll do a lot of a deal analysis, underwriting, but also just talking about really whatever. Sometimes even capital raising. But then also providing other free things like free ebook, free calculator, free underwriting examples like case studies. And so as a result, by doing that, it allows us to raise capital because people are like, all right, I want to keep learning more. And often a lot of people they like learning on specific projects. And so it's like if you have money invested in a deal, you pay a lot more attention on what's going on than if you don't have money. So that's the best way I could explain it. Is the people that invest with us, it's because they want to learn at a much higher level of that project.
That's good. I what I would say to that too, and my follow-up question would be for someone who doesn't necessarily have money to invest, but sees the value that you guys are providing. What skills did you develop, or do you recommend others develop that made you valuable enough for others to trust you with with their capital?
Um, I'd say the most important part is some sort of resume. Like people ask a lot how they can like do a deal with us without money because we have everything dialed. We have the land, like everything. But typically I answer, all right, the first is credit sponsor. Like from a scalability perspective, like I can't take on all the DSCRs. Kaiba can't, like, and the build loan. So we do two different credit sponsors where people can wedge themselves in essentially. And then the second is connecting capital to the deals. It's like, hey, we teach co-living semesters inside of Sub 2. Like this is an easy, way for people to connect. And so those are the two, which to answer your question, it's building the resume because it's like we were talking about 20 minutes ago, buying deals with no money of your own. Well, it's like, well, why should people give you money? It's like chicken or the egg. Well, it's you need at least a couple deals. Like my first few properties that I bought without my own money that we raised, I gave my broker all of the cash flow until it's paid down. He's paid back. So like not ideal terms by any means, but it gave me the resume and it gave me like the credentials to start raising capital elsewhere.
I love that. And like you said, not every deal is a slam dunk. We talked on that before, but also making it so enticing for somebody to do a deal with you, like you just mentioned, giving them all of that
And the depreciation.
and the depreciation. I mean, so yeah, you're really getting the experience at that point and kind of betting on yourself of as the operator to say, hey, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to find a way to make this work, and ultimately finding people that already know, like, and trust you. That's how I started with capital and not using my own money was going and talking to family, and that family, a year and a half ago invested in us and still just reinvest that money in deals because they've seen, the value in it. And now I'm able to speak from a point of somewhat of authority, and you guys having that platform of semesters and obviously have done really well to leverage that experience and that platform as well. So I love that. Um, so what I heard was two ways people can get involved without capital is being a credit sponsor, which my follow-up question to that would be, what are your requirements for a credit sponsor? And also, you said the other one was to almost kind of wedge yourself into a deal by bringing and connecting the capital to that, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, in terms of the credit sponsor, the DSCR, typically the lenders they want to see that you've owned two properties at least 12 months. And it's more so it sounds like they just want to make sure you're not trying to move into it. And then a credit score over 700. And that's really it. Just those. And yeah, I know we're gonna do so we were filming with Pace last week in Houston and we're discussing like our growth, appropriate way to grow, collaborate with people, help owners club, like all sorts of stuff. And we are gonna unleash something pretty soon. It's a type of licensing. Not a full-blown franchise or nothing like that, but we'll have to dive into that later. But so that's the first, and then yeah, connecting capital. So 50K or above is what we typically do. If it's less, then it starts getting a little messy. We have done it with some people where we know them a lot more than just, anyone. But those are the main two. Yeah, connecting credit or connecting capital.
Love it. And people don't realize how important that is, especially when you're doing it at the scale you guys are doing it and intending to continue to grow it too. You need more and more of that. People maybe see your team and see he's got it all under control, but obviously you have goals and vision to grow it beyond this. So that's good. I think that's a highly actionable item for people listening to this, seeing how they could potentially come in and help if they're like, oh, I don't have, 50 grand. Well, I've got plenty of friends and family that probably do and want good returns on it. So that's it's good actionable stuff there. So you're big on marketing, big on social media, obviously, as a capital raiser. How does visibility and credibility really play into capital raising today?
Yeah, it's funny. Before Sub 2 especially was not like really in social media much. I had it, but it wasn't like definitely wasn't my thing. never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd have a YouTube channel until Pace basically made us. He's like, this is a non-negotiable. Like, you absolutely have to have this. And so, yeah, I mean, it's everything. Like, if you want to raise capital, I'd say it's like you have to have social media, and you don't have to be like crazy about it. My personal, and I could probably do more than I do, but my KPIs, I'll do like, stories, Facebook, Instagram stories, like one a day, but in terms of like a post, YouTube once a week, Facebook kind of once a week, Instagram maybe once a week. I should probably up it. I should probably double it, but that's what I've personally been doing. And I like to make it more about the projects, not just like Dustin. I think that gets just boring, like redundant.
I mean, we don't want to see what
Um,
you ate today.
I got a protein shake right here I'm working on. But yeah, it is a vital, it's like, wheels on a car. You're not going to drive without those wheels. And I'd say it's the equivalent to capital raising. You have to use social media.
People don't know what you're doing and see the projects you're doing, and you don't talk about them. How are they ever going to know that they can invest with you? And
Hmm.
I think the biggest thing I always go back to is people invest with the people they know, like, and trust. And whether we want to believe it or see it or not, when you see people posting on social media and you're engaging and relating to their content, all of a sudden that builds that sense of trust, even though you may never met them in person. And people don't necessarily invest in the deal first, they invest in the person. So
Hmm.
I love how you kind of walked us through that. And doesn't necessarily mean you have to post every single thing every single day of your life, but I'm the same way. Try and post a little more consistently on Facebook and Instagram of like our projects and what we're doing. And my stories are more like personal stuff, my beliefs, my faith, and my family. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, we've been successful with that too. Just even not trying to raise capital, you don't realize you're doing it, but just, putting yourself out there and kind of casting that wide net, and those fish kind of tend to come to you. I know I've heard you use kind of a reference just like that. And I've heard Pace use that. It's just like fishing. Whatever kind of fly you put on there is really what kind of fish you're going to catch. So if you're casting this big, huge, wide net, then you are going to, catch a very wide variety. Then you got to kind of niche down. So um, it's good stuff there. So I think we talked about this a little bit. Um, you're part of a large team. We went through all of that, obviously doing new build co-living in Houston. How how should people think differently about getting involved in deals they don't own or control? So, for instance, we just heard how people can come and be a part of your deals. How do you need, or how should you think differently? Yes, you're a partner on the deal. I'm going to guess a minority partner. You guys still control the majority of the LLC in the deal. How should you think maybe a little bit differently when you're getting involved in some of those first deals, to be part of it, to grow your resume, but not necessarily be the operator, the head person in charge?
Yeah, so I would say the most underlooked benefit that a lot of people don't realize on these, like our deals at least, um, and you've probably heard this. So the to qualify for a new construction loan, it's not easy. It's actually pretty tough. Like even LD, over 50 properties, over 100 rehabs, he even had a little trouble qualifying because it's like they want to see that you've done, I don't know, three new construction projects in the past 24 months. Well, it's like, well, how do you do those if you haven't done one before? So like chicken or the egg again. And what's really cool though is on our projects, since these partners, they're in the operating agreement, and it does indeed qualify as one of those boxes that need to be checked in order for them, maybe in a year from now, if they want to do a new construction project, that's a major barrier that they've now accomplished. Um, so I wanted to throw that out. It doesn't answer your question directly, but I would say looking at it as more of a, hey, if you want to build a portfolio, like we mentioned earlier, you do need that resume. And it's realizing, okay, I am a true equity partner. I am in the operating agreement. Like I am a legit, it's not just like a GV, none of that. It's like I'm in it. It's a real deal. And so the people that do it right and leverage it and like they're posting about it, because every Friday We provide weekly updates on the project. And I mean, all they have to do really is copy paste, throw it in chat, and then they're posting it on their social media. Like, hey, here's what is going on in the project I'm in. And, a couple projects like that, and that's, fast track your way to your own capital raising for your own deals.
I think you answered that first part of the question perfectly and thinking about the deal a little differently of I think of getting in a deal at least at first I did of okay, I'm going to get cash flow, I'm going to get depreciation, all the benefits of real estate because that's what I listened to when we first listened to Pace. I didn't know real estate. I was a healthcare professional. But now seeing how you get into these bigger deals or grow a portfolio, you don't do it by yourself. You do it as a team. And I think that, qualification for new construction loans, something Chad Choquette and I've been talking about a lot lately of he's trying to do more and more and more new construction and bigger projects. But the problem is getting into that is you have to have proof that you've already done it. And just like everything else in life, like, well, how do I get experience without being given a chance? Just like when I did my undergrad, you had to go serve, you had to go volunteer basically and do the thing without being paid. This is not to say you're not being paid. Obviously, you guys are giving returns on this, but I think there's a bigger benefit of that people may not have realized before you just pointed that out. I don't think I realized that either and kind of connected the dots. You get involved in a couple projects with you guys, and then boom, you're not only learning, you're earning, but you're also gaining that experience when it comes time for you to, apply for your own at some point. So really, really good there. So thank you for that. I think, yeah, that kind of leads me to, let's see, even though we've kind of touched on this before, I'm gonna touch on this and then I'll get to one last question before we wrap up. If someone was listening still saying, I have no connections, I have no money, I want to get into real estate, um, my credit score is 650, so I can't do that, Dustin. All of this, all of these excuses, I'm going to call them, or objections, I won't call them excuses, but objections as to why, they're listening, but they can't do a deal with you. What's the first step that you'd tell them to take? Not even necessarily to get into a deal with you, but if somebody listening says, I have no money, I have no connections, I've got a 620 credit score, what are some of the first steps that you would tell them to take?
Yeah, I would say it probably wouldn't be for us because like we have everything dialed to the point it's only capital, but the second best alternative is finding someone else that is buying co-living, like creative deals or even cash, and then hunting deals down for them and getting, a finder's fee, an assignment fee. And then the first big question is well, like, or the first question you should ask, that's whoever's listening, is how do I know that they're a legit buyer so I'm not wasting my time? Because a lot of people say that they're a buyer. So you're going to want some evidence of maybe cash in the bank that's liquid or a HUDs, ideally HUDs. And, they bought at least one property in the past 6 months, ideally, two to three in the past year, just evidence that, hey, they are doing what they claim to be doing. Um, and yeah, hunting down deals for them because there's co-living teams, you know, building. There's a few that I know personally that are like growing, and they're like, all right, this is my official buy box. I know that they're performing, and so yeah, I'd be hunting down, like connecting with them, finding their buy box, and then be like, all right, what do you need me to do? I'm gonna relentlessly do this, and then yeah, make a quick 5-10K, just hunting deals down for them.
Good. And I'm going to clarify. So a HUD is like a closing statement, right? For those that may not be aware of that, like when you close on a house, you get a final closing statement that says I'm the buyer or I'm the seller. So that's your validity when somebody says, "Can I see your HUDs?" Showing they've actually done the thing. They're not just talking, or again, showing liquid capital that they have available. So I love that. Because yeah, a lot of people come to us saying the same thing of hunting deals, but hardly anybody ever asks. Maybe because we have social media proof or they found us via social media and they see us doing the thing, but always asking, for proof of that, I think is a big one. Um, but I think you've given a bunch of really, really good nuggets of how people can get involved, not only in your deals, but for other people's deals as well as maybe if they're not super interested in co-living or they just came here to kind of listen to your journey on capital raising. Um, some really good actionable items there. But I almost always ask this question to all my guests at the end. And obviously the title of the podcast is Thinking Outside the Bank. What does thinking outside the bank mean to you now after your journey in real estate?
I would say, I guess the very first unfiltered thought is if it's something that most people are doing, it's probably not the best choice. It's probably the easy choice. Um, and so like I guess the dots that connect to that are like, okay, 9 to 5, 401k, work till you're 60, 65. And so using that as a filter alone, like, hey, if 90% of people I know are going this route, sure it can work, but it's probably the easy route. Um, but yeah, I'd say thinking outside the bank is more so like if you're sober, if you're, working out consistently, you have a good, like, well-rounded life where you're progressing in a variety of ways. Like, don't be afraid to take the leap and trust your instincts and go, like, shoot for something that most people aren't willing to.
It's good. It's a good golden nugget there at the end, man. I like that kind of bringing it full circle, not just financial, but you talked about sobriety, you talked about exercise, you talked about, mental health, honestly, in there too. Which I think is fantastic. Too many people get into this and create another job for themselves and realizing it's about the whole person, the holistic person, and there's so many other components to that. So
Mhm.
I love that, man. And I just want to say thank you, obviously, for kind of being a guest and sharing your expertise, showing that capital raising just isn't about having money, it's about creating value and earning trust in people. So yeah, big thanks to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So everybody else, if this episode changed how you think about getting started in real estate, make sure you subscribe, Thinking Outside the Bank, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Keep thinking outside the bank, and obviously, we'll link where you can go and follow Dustin and Dustin's journey on Instagram, Facebook, his YouTube channel, and the links down below. Dustin, is there anywhere else you want people to go to connect with you if they have some of those things to bring to your deals?
Yeah, just for the sake of evergreen, buydealswithdustin.com. It'll redirect to my link tree and whatever we have going on, whether it's free ebooks, new videos, or deals that we're doing. Yeah, you could just go there, buydealswithdustin.com.
Awesome. I'll link that down below as well. And thank you, sir. I appreciate it, my friend.